Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw for Virtual Vacation Events, the new age of luxury. And we're here with Matthew Upchurch, who is chairman and CEO of Virtuoso, which, if you don't know already, it is a luxury travel network, a group of travel agencies, top travel suppliers. And Matthew has been doing this for a while. I've been going to a lot of his shows for a while. And really, Matthew is considered an expert in luxury travel, if you didn't already know out there, and as a luxury consumer of travel. And we're going to speak with Matthew about what luxury travel is today, especially post-pandemic, and we can almost say post-pandemic. We're getting there, as well as how it has evolved. And I think you're going to find the discussion interesting and maybe key in your understanding of what to select and how to choose a luxury vacation experience. And you'll find out about that right now. And we're going to talk with Matthew. And first of all, Matthew, where are you and how are you?
Well, great to see you again, James. Well, I'm in my home office.
Right.
We're actually now at that phase where we're doing some, back to our offices on June 15th, officially for everybody. And so we're coming out of this. We've got our come back to work plan. So I'm in Fort Worth. We'll be moving up to Seattle to our home there for the summer. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to leave Texas in the summer and move to Seattle. But it's great to see you, and it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, and rumor has it we've actually seen each other live a couple of times in the last few weeks, which was very, very different because it's been a whole year. But we're back, I think. And let's get to the definition of the whole thing about luxury travel. How has the definition of luxury travel changed since you began in the business? How has luxury kind of evolved in travel? And again, we always look at it, is there a better word than luxury to use for this?
That is the conundrum, because obviously luxury is one of those words that is completely overused and sometimes, not used well. But it really is also in the eye of the beholder. I remember one time being on Australian television many years ago, being asked that on the spot. And, obviously there's different variations of price point and quality and things like that. But one of my favorite definitions is in a world where everybody's trying to sell you what they've made, I think that one of the things about luxury is the fact that is actually being heard as to exactly what fits your needs and being able to deliver that. And that's why, you talk about what's different about luxury. I think what's different about luxury in the last 30 years is just how broad it is, right? I think it used to be a much more narrow. You thought of luxury as primarily being, fancy chandeliers and this and gold faucets and all this kind of stuff. And there's still a place for that beautiful, more traditional, type of luxury. But the size and scope of it has really is way beyond anything I think anybody could have imagined.
Right.
From remote to, things that are hard to access. But I do think that the common denominators are quality, and accessibility, right? In other words, getting into something special access.
Right.
And a lot of times it's something that's rare, right? Something that is not available to everybody.
No, it is changing, and I know traditional luxury is still around. We still have places with large suites, gourmet foods, butlers, great service. But there's been another layer on top of that now. I think, and we've been talking about this for a while, luxury is, experience. It's transformational experience, right? So how would you, it's really experiencing something maybe your peers haven't had. Have luxury travelers really become experience junkies now? Has that changed the definition of luxury travel?
Well, I mean, it is. I think the difference has just been the shift in a generational shift, because I think back, 30, 40, 50 years ago, a luxury was literally viewed as, a luxury as in, ooh, I get to do this. Now it's almost like a right. I mean, now it's like a way of life. And I think that's where you've seen, luxury spend has been moving, from luxury goods to experiences for quite some time.
Right.
But I also think it's been affected by this multi-generational piece, right? Where it now is viewed as part of a rich life, right? We have a saying and a trademark called "return on life,"
right?
And a life well traveled delivers return on life, and I think that's something that's made it very special. And again, I think the other thing that's happened is because of the explosion of choices and opportunities. Today's luxury traveler doesn't have one persona. We talk about travel personas, right?
Right.
I have a persona when I go off on my solo trip, right, for rejuvenation or something, or there's a persona I have when I'm with my spouse or with my family or multi-families now. So I think being able to create something that's more bespoke, that's very personalized, and that is also creative, right? I think there's always been this really interesting, I call it creative tension with our travelers between looking to go to the new and the different,
right, versus
going back to the places we love, that we have a real deep love for, but how can I experience it differently? What's changed? What is that? And that creative tension, in the hands of a great advisor traveler relationship, right, is something that becomes kind of magical when you treat it not as just a kind of a happenstance thing, but really kind of having a strategy for how to create your life's best experiences.
Well, I know that Virtuoso has developed your Wanderlust product, which really is trying to define the experiences that people want in their travel now and in the future. So you kind of, call it a bucket list, if you will, but it's kind of, trying to discern exactly what kind of experiences and these travelers want, right?
Well, absolutely. And a lot of what we do at Virtuoso in support of our advisors in order to be able to deliver the world's best experiences to their travelers, is obviously we work together to constantly be hunting for the right products and things that are new. We have communities within Virtuoso of adventure travel and cruise and culinary and family and those different communities of advisors, are able to focus on things that are then also a benefit even to the advisor that doesn't specialize in that, because our ability to have these different people around the world and these advisors having that kind of focus allows us to have an incredibly creative and broad portfolio of products. But then what happens is Wanderlust really was an invention of having seen what great advisors do with their best clients.
Right.
And, really good advisors, they're not just sitting there waiting. They talk to their clients when they come back from a trip. If there's one thing you could have changed during that trip, what would have been? And it becomes a relationship where that interaction makes that relationship better and better. And it's actually felt, and it's a learning relationship. It's why so many advisors have long-term relationships. And then the other thing that also is an interesting situation is Wanderlust was created so that those discussions, so that the traveler can be proactive about it, right? They can look at experiences, dream ahead, because if you give your advisor a little more time and have a strategy around your travel, right, they're able to deliver an overall better strategy. In fact, we always say, why would you have a financial advisor in your life to help you have a conscious plan to optimize your financial assets, but not have somebody in your life that is a collaborator,
right,
to help you optimize your most valuable non-renewable asset, your free leisure time?
Yeah, no, and that's true. And in fact, for years, obviously, it's an ask and answered question. Do you think travel advisors are still one of the best ways to assure travelers get the right luxury travel experience? I know you're going to say yes to that, but how can travelers really find the right travel advisor to serve their needs? How can they do that?
Right. Well, two things, James. One of them is, of course, I'm going to be biased and say that I've dedicated my life, but I want travelers to know I was a tour operator. I started life in this industry on the supplier side, on the vendor side, right? I was not, and it was a group of amazing travel advisors that changed the trajectory of my life in this industry.
Right.
Back when I was in my mid-20s. Because when I met those original travel advisors that made up what is now the Virtuoso Network, right? And I saw how amazing they were. I became engrossed with them. So there's two things I want to say about this. Number one, the biggest misnomer about using a travel advisor is that people think, well, that's really for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
Right? The reality is exactly the opposite. The reality is that when you have a really good travel advisor, they're collaborators. They expect for you to come back and say, I have these contacts. I've done this. I read this, et cetera, et cetera. I have friends that have done this. But they're that collaborator that maintains that consistency in the way that you're able to look at choices and prioritize things and find out about it, do deeper research on it. If you read about something, well, yeah, that's that, but here are the other three choices. What do you think? So obviously, and again, obviously I'm biased because I think the first place you should start is finding a Virtuoso advisor. And I don't say that just because I'm biased to our network, but because, we have been on the forefront of this, of the experiential and luxury travel marketplace. But I also say that because these advisors in our network do two things. They spend a huge amount of time building very, very strong relationships with providers all over the world. They have an ethos in our network of there's more to be gained by sharing than there is by holding to yourself, and therefore there's a massive amount of sharing amongst themselves to elevate the profession for everybody. And then I also think that the other thing that's important is when you read their profiles and all that, I always say that the last mile, it's kind of like in telecom. You can have the fastest fiber optic network in the world,
right?
But in telecom, they call it the last mile. If the last mile to your house is a copper wire, that doesn't matter. Well, the last mile in an advisor-traveler relationship is chemistry.
Right.
So you can find, I can give you 3 or 4 fabulously talented advisors as far as their knowledge and their product knowledge and destinational knowledge and all that. But really, chemistry is something that, just like any other professional, right, really is an important part of that. Stylistically, the way they operate.
Yeah, so certainly a chemistry you have with your travel advisor, like your financial advisor or anyone else, is truly important. Now, next question, of course, obviously we've gone through an incredibly horrible, difficult year for everyone, and travel has really been hit hard. How has the pandemic changed luxury travel, if at all? And I think we sort of came out of this saying, once again, it proves how crucial travel advisors are when there's a crisis like this. We've had this experience, 9/11, recession, you name it, advisors were always there, and here we are again. So I guess the first question is, how has the pandemic changed luxury travel? And two, how has how come travel advisors are even more crucial today than they were, a year and a half ago?
Well, first of all, major disruptions accelerate trends. We've seen that, right? Every disruption, even before this, 9/11, even the volcanic eruptions that shut down, transatlantic travel. Over time, any kind of major disruption accelerates trends either on the upside or the downside. And so the reality is that, there are amazing stories about the heroics of what travel advisors did for their clients during the pandemic and repatriating people and doing all that kind of stuff. And the complexity of travel is there now. The power of relationships, right? That's always been something. I may know XYZ hotel in Mykonos or in Bhutan, but our advisors have spent literally hundreds of thousands of hours, getting to know these people personally. Right. And so the amount of time that they spend on that. So how's it changed? Well, first of all, we did a recent poll where 92% of Virtuoso travelers said that they will never take travel granted again. Granted. So there's tremendous pent up demand. We already knew that the golden era of travel, which was what we were calling 2019, right? It was the all-time high watermark of the travel industry. All of the fundamentals around travel have not changed. The fact that there's 5 generations of people all traveling at the same time, and the desire for travel. But I think that what it's done is I think you're going to see people the pandemic has said, you know what, I need to travel a little more often. I need to add more travel to end of business trips. I can take longer trips. So depending on where you are generationally, right, the ability to take longer trips, multi-gen was something that started growing after 9/11.
Right. The
pandemic had a multi-family, was another thing. So, but I think that the fundamental way it's changed is that it's both on the traveler side with the importance of it, but also on the supply side, on the destinational side. There is kind of a focus now to what we call a conscious comeback. Right. In other words, as things start to come back, I've had discussions with, the mayor of Amsterdam, with people in Florence, all over the world, where they're asking themselves the questions, how do we come back as a destination? How do we make sure that we are prioritizing, not just having over tourism, but experiences and things that help. So I think but I do think that the other piece of advice that I've been giving our advisors, which I think is important for travelers to know, is the really good advisors are actually going to get a little bit more selective as to the clients that they choose to work with.
Sure.
Because they want clients that really see the value in the value in what they do, right? So that they have that collaborative nature.
No, that's good advice, certainly. And then, do you think as we're going to emerge? There was a growing focus on sustainable travel. Do you think we're going to see that, be augmented as we head out of this pandemic? Sustainable travel. Obviously, there are health and safety concerns that everyone is trying to meet now. And then, of course, there's wellness travel and things like that. Do you see we're going to see a shift into those areas now on those concerns?
Yes, James. And in fact, that's what I mean by disruptions accelerate trends.
Right.
So the focus on sustainable travel, but let's just take a moment and let's make sure that when we talk about sustainable travel, we're all talking about the same thing. It's not only, we also like to tell a force for good, right? Just like, and it's about being more purposeful.
Okay.
And it's about making sure that particularly in the affluent sector, we have a lot of data that shows that affluent travelers want to make sure that their travel spend is having a positive impact. And that positive impact is, when we talk about sustainable travel, we really talk about 3 major pillars. Obviously, the environment.
Right.
And we're not only talking about sustainable now, we're starting to talk about regenerative. In other words, not only how do you keep something, but how do you actually make it better, right? It's kind of like our moms and dads, leave the place better than you left, than when you than how you found it. Then there's the preservation of natural cultural heritage, and then it's the benefit, the economic benefit to local economies. And when we were worried about under-tourism prior to the pandemic, nobody was really thinking about the economic impact. But now this horrible crisis has shown the incredibly damaging effect that a lack of travel and tourism does, because many of the world's most pristine places, parks, marine parks, poaching in Africa, are actually protected by travelers, spend and tourism dollars.
So there is that people have to, sustainability also means sustainable for the people there.
Exactly.
Right.
And as you said, wellness was a trend that was growing tremendously. We started our wellness community almost 6 years ago. And I think that's this whole thing about how does travel, both mental and physical wellness, right? How do I have travel be something that is not regenerative to myself, right? And I think that's what's kind of interesting, because when you think of wellness, it's also wellness of spirit, right? How does this make me feel? If you think about the word, back to the whole idea of the word luxury, one of the things about luxury is really about how does it make me feel?
Right. And that's the big thing. Now, my last question really is focused on, as we emerge, what are the kind of travel products and the destinations that you see as being most in demand for luxury travelers? Where are people going? According, you already have booking patterns for this 2021 and then into 2022. But so give me an idea of what are the most popular forms of travel that people are focused on, as well as some of the destinations.
Well, first of all, I know we're speaking to travelers here. The first thing I wanted to say is have a strategy. Work with an advisor, that's better. But even if you don't, have a strategy, because right now travel is being driven by policy. So where is popular? Wherever I can go. Right. I mean, you saw, you and I were together in Mexico during the WTTC thing, and literally they announced that Europe was going to open up, to vaccinated Americans, and literally you could just see the buzz in the room.
They were already on their iPhones, like, okay,
everybody
let's
was all right, whatever. So so my number one thing right now is have a strategy where make sure to be booking out front. Make those big bookings out there, and then look at your last minute type of stuff, right? It's kind of like that science project we all did when we were in the 5th grade, where you had the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand, and your science teacher said, all of that fits in this jar, but it only fits a certain way. Think about that. That's what great Virtuoso advisors have been doing for quite some time now. Let's look at your milestone trips. What are those big ones that need to take that time, the planning? You want something bespoke. You want something. You want the best space. Plan further out, right? And then back in. And by having that kind of a strategy, you're actually then more able to take advantages of more last minute things or opportunities that come up. So I think that's number one. As far as the destinations, literally, everything that was open space, not crowded, et cetera. But I actually see cities coming back sooner than I think some people are. I'm actually headed to New York City and Boston, next week. And I'm actually excited. I was talking to Fred Dixon of NYC and Company, and he said, one of the things that this pandemic did is it helped us to rediscover New York's outdoor spaces, right? Sure. And how to be more proactive. I think that's going to come back again. It all depends on vaccinations and protocols. But this pent-up demand is real. And remember this, in 2019, 110 million Chinese were traveling outbound of China.
Oh, yes.
Right? The rise of the entire world, the Americans, the aging of the baby boomer, the longevity revolution, that pent-up demand is there. So you're going to see it first be driven by policy. But I think that you're going to see that pretty much as things open up, there's tremendous demand for it. So I'm really excited about the cruise industry right now because I think a lot of the work that they've done, the people that are cruisers, and particularly, they never lost faith, right? Because in the sensationalist press, all we read about was the negative stuff. You didn't read about how cruise lines literally chartered 787s to repatriate, 50 people, from somewhere back home, whatever, and the amazing. So that's one of the reasons why the cruise industry of all sizes, right, has continued to do so well. If you look at their stock prices and things like that, because of the passengers that love the product. But I also think that, immersion, longer stays, wellness, purposeful travel, I think those are all trends that you're going to see accelerate.
Well, Matthew, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk about, the current state of luxury travel, what the future holds, how this pandemic has affected everyone, and of course, the importance of travel advisors in this luxury travel. And that's how you can get the best experience. It is finding the right travel advisor that can help you and help you map out your luxury travel. But as always, great thoughts and great insights into travel in general and luxury travel in particular. And thank you once again for joining us. I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Virtual Vacation Events.